it's up to each presentation framework to interpret those attributes and actually apply the attributes. And so MVC we have our own implementation of that. Now, MVC3 also includes one or two attributes that are specific to MVC3 simply because we wrote them after .NET 4 came out. So we couldn't slam them back into .NET 4 when it's already been released. But we don't want to have a recall just to add some new attributes. So they're in MVC, but you can imagine that in the future we will put them in the core .NET framework. And so what we're going to cover here are three of the built-in attributes that we have: the compare attribute, remote validation, and then custom validators. So interestingly enough, I think the compare attribute is one of the ones that's not built into the core framework, but is shipped with MVC. But I'll have to double check that. But here you can see we have this class user, and there's two properties, password and compare password. And on the second property, we use the compare attribute, and we say, compare this value to the value of password. So this is a very common scenario with password verification. When you're creating an account, they say type it in twice. And what do? You copy and paste it into the second one. So thus making it kind of a moot point. But in case you still want to have that interface, we have this attribute. The other attribute that we added, and this is specific to MVC, is the remote attribute. And it takes in two different parameters. You can see here that we apply it to a username property. And so that's the value that we're going to pass to the remote action method. And then we need to give it two other parameters: what controller and what action method. And so what it's going to do is it's going to call the username available action method on the user's controller, and it's going to pass in the value username. So your action method that you call, you can see here that we have the username parameter. And so this is really great for the classic username scenario where you have a form, and rather than waiting for them to submit the form to tell them that the username is not available, you do it dynamically using jQuery. And that's exactly what we're using under the hood, so that they know that they have to try fill 172, not fill. So in order for the remote validation attribute to work, you do need to make sure that you're referencing the proper script libraries. And that's the jQuery and jQuery validate, and our own unobtrusive jQuery validation script. So Drew, back to you to give a demo of this.
Wow. 2 of them worked, for the most part.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can get 3 to work in one session. I know. All right, so what I have
time
here...
is running out, so just add pressure.
OK. All right. So first of all, let's just take a look at how we're using this. I'm actually not going to write any code here. We've already got a little website written here that we're going to use. But I just want to show you how we've used and implemented the attributes on this thing called user, which is a kind of a common thing to represent in an application. And first of all, we'll look at the compare. And so the compare is just saying, go ahead and compare and make sure that this is an appropriate email address. So just let's pull up email confirmation. All right, I'm sorry. So we're doing compare, and we're saying make sure this is a good email address.
Yeah,
right?
we're comparing it to the property specified. So we're making sure that the email that you typed in the confirmation matches the email you typed in the email field.
OK. And then we also have a remote attribute, which is actually using, just pointing at a controller, another action result, to just do a validation on the username to make sure. And what we're going to do here, we can actually switch over and look at our validation controller. And we'll see what we're doing is basically just doing a lookup to see if the username exists. If the username does not exist, we're going to go ahead and start to generate just by adding on numbers to the end of the username to say, here might be a username that you could use. Checking to see if that exists. If it does, then we'll generate another one. When we find one that's unique, we'll reply back with a JSON result to just say that here's a suggested user ID. So that's our kind of custom remote validation attribute. Let's actually run and just see those two work. And so we'll execute this. You see it's again, a very polished application here. Cool. We'll create this. Let's actually use a name here, a username that already exists in the system, and so it, of course, made that call back to the server, found that the name exists and suggested a unique one. So we'll go ahead and use the unique one. And then on the email address as well, we'll just do an invalid email address, and of course the remote call there is working as well, where it does the compare, right? So actually, it's emitting JavaScript there.
Yeah, this one is doing it all in the client.
Yep. So if I type in the appropriate one, it validates. I can create that. Of course, we've got some other rules there that are not working as well, or that I haven't filled out because of required attributes. So the other one that's interesting is back here we also have a custom attribute, a custom validation. And so if I go and look at the implementation for this, what is it again? Alt-Shift-Enter? I'm learning. I remember.
Nice. Alt-Shift-Enter. So there you go.
So we're actually inheriting here from validation attribute and overriding a method called isValid and just checking to make sure the credit card number is valid. And you can see that we've used a very good routine here for checking the validity of a credit card number.
That looks foolproof.
Absolutely. We're not going to be hacked at all. Hacked. Sorry. So let's run that one and see that work. We're already running. And so we'll type in a credit card, hit create, and it's working very well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's not working because you didn't write the client-side validation for it. So you need to correct all the other fields and then submit it back.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we can't automatically create client-side validation for a server-side attribute that you wrote. But we do have an easy way for you to register your own client-side method for that server-side attribute.
Yep. See, I actually did that on purpose. I was waiting for you to interject so people could learn from my mistakes.
Yeah.
So now we hit create, and the credit card, of course, is not valid. And then if we type in 13 numbers, if I got lucky, somewhere in there will be 13. There we go.
There we go.
It actually works.
Yay,
so
it works.
a couple different options there for doing some custom validation, advanced validation on your MVC application.
Cool. So unfortunately, we're running low on time, so we can't show you how to do the client-side validation. Plus, I don't know if Drew's prepared for that anyway.
Don't put any more pressure on me.
So just to summarize, our goal with MVC is for it to be an extremely extensible framework, and there are advanced features available for you, but we try to keep them out of the way if you don't need them, right? You can build a really simple app and not know about any of those, but once you need that extra power, those things are available to you. So do we have time for questions? So are there any questions? OK. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy that presentation. Cool.